everyone. So welcome to this session about own your data science and AI or lose your sovereignty. Sovereignty may sound as a complex topic, so I want to start with a very simple question. What is sovereignty? What are its main pillars? And why is it so important? Amiral, as former French Chief of Defense Staff, can you enlighten us?
Well, thank you, Florence. It's always a challenge to speak about sovereignty in just less than 3 minutes.
Very sorry.
So, okay, let's go for it. Sovereignty covers, as a matter of fact, two concepts which rely directly to all the cyber field. The first one is freedom of choice, or in other words, the free will. And the second one is, of course, protection and autonomy. Just a few questions we have to ask ourselves. Which infrastructure do we have to build? By whom would it be operated? Where? At which cost, including the energy cost? Second type of question would be, I would refer to algorithm. Where does it come from? In which school of computer science was it computed, as a matter of fact, if I may say so? Under which scientific option? With which hypothesis? Third question we would have to answer in matter of purely sovereignty and freedom of choice, how do we choose the data? By whom? How much? How do we organize it? How do we manage it? And last question, just about purely freedom of choice, which interoperability do we choose because we will have to be linked to other systems? Now, in terms of protection and autonomy, of course, how do we organize the access to different data? How can we guarantee that there is no corruption of the data? And we know it's through hacking, it's a possibility. And this is a very, very difficult matter to address. At last, I would just like to put a lot of emphasis about what it does mean for us. It does mean a lot for our entire economy, for our own people, because all of us are, whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, totally linked to AI, and things will go even further.
Thank you. And Sébastien, Rousset, what is your point of view from the Naval Group?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Admiral, for the introduction. I will try to do as well in 2 minutes. Naval Group is an international leader in naval defense, and obviously we are fully committed to be the best partner of government, obviously the French government, in asserting the maritime sovereignty. Then the main matter is maritime sovereignty, and technological sovereignty is just a mean. What do we mean as sovereignty in AI point of view is just delivers the best decision to the appropriate crew member at the optimal time on the battlefield. Just an example coming from a French movie, a famous French movie called Chant du Loup. This is a story about Rousset, his nickname, of a sonar analyst. His job is to listen to the sonar's noise, sounds, and try to identify and classify what's the noise. If it's an enemy submarine, a whale, a cargo, if it's an enemy, a friend, a foe. And during the movie, Rousset is under pressure of the commanding level, probably tired of weeks of missions. And he hesitates to classify a sound, and a few minutes after, he made the wrong decision. He declassified the sound, saying it's a non-relevant sound, noise, and in fact it was an enemy submarine. So, well, imagine this decision was suggested by foreign AI, something we do not master the design, something we do not master how it had been trained. Well, imagine the consequences. But in the other end, imagine this AI was designed by a responsible company, as Naval Group, providing the right decision to Rousset to take the good decision. He reported to commanding level. The commanding level taking the decision probably to engage a torpedo. So the consequences are very, very important.
Thank you, Sébastien. Suyong, you are BNP Paribas Head of AI and IT Innovation. Why is AI sovereignty so important in your opinion?
Good. So, first of all, the term digital sovereignty has been used more and more in the public debate. And it is important to understand why the term itself is important. And we frame a little bit differently. For us, one of the top priority is the operational resiliency. In other words, the ability to remain secure, to ensure continuity, and have a complete control over our systems, regardless of the circumstances. And the one guiding principle that makes us to ensure this operational resiliency is the data, the client data, the very sensitive data that we handle on a day-to-day basis. So this year, we've set up a new governance framework with the top committee chaired by the group CEO and many other, well, a couple of other committees, with one mostly focused on the technological foundations, the IT capabilities that are more and more important so that we can industrialize AI in a safe and secure fashion. And it is the way that we decided to deploy the LLMs, the large language models, the new models, in the generative AI era, and especially the models that we get through the partnerships that we have with our French startups, such as Mistral AI, but also with Probabl. I think one needs to understand that it's not something new. We've been putting AI applications into productions for quite some time now. We have over 800 AI use cases. Most use cases are using traditional AI over the last 10 or so years, with the help of 700 data scientists and 3,000 other data specialists, with one singular goal, which is to generate business value while making sure that everything's developed in a safe and secure manner. And for a bank that is processing billions of transactions every single year, it's a tall task that we have to ensure.
Okay, so to summarize, sovereignty covers two concepts, liberty of choice and protection, and these two concepts are necessary conditions to AI resiliency.
Yes.
And this is why it's so important. And so my next question comes naturally. How can an enterprise organize its AI and digital resiliency today? What sovereign technologies can they adopt for resiliency? I think that's a question for you, Yann Lechelle, CEO of Probabl.
Thank you for the question. So, to me, there is one aspect that is very clear today, which is that open source provides, or at least is a core ingredient of that resiliency in enterprise settings, but also at the macro level, at the national or international level. So open source is an esoteric object. Not everyone understands what it means, but what it means is that it's technology that provides choice, reversibility, ownership. And once the foundation is in that nature, it opposes itself to proprietary, closed, and of course, void of lock-in effects, going back to the choice. So part of that momentum towards say, Europe trying to improve its sovereignty, because we don't have a lot of sovereignty today. We do have examples in typically Naval Group, in the Defense Ministry, or at BNP Paribas, where they have implemented strategies to improve their ability to make choices, to control part of the stacks, because technology is a stack from the components, the semiconductors, the cloud, private cloud or public cloud, and then platform as a service and software as a service. So all these layers are stacked up. And at every level of the stack, there is open source. In fact, 96% of the code, even in proprietary technologies, is open source. So that's a fact. It's the invisible infrastructure that is the core component of technology. And if we activate this muscle to select open source technology, open protocols, open data at the national level, then we increase the amount of sovereignty at the national level. And of course, at the corporate level, it's very much the same thing. It's something that sometimes you activate by implementing special open source offices, right? So there is a way to actually enable teams to make the proper choices. But that requires a new muscle, which is to build resiliency at the corporate level. It starts by measuring the amount of dependency.
Thank you. And so, Sébastien, what's Naval Group's approach to resilient AI?
Resilient AI strategy is based on two pillars. The first one is obviously based on technology. We have to master the overall technology stack. It starts from the physics, the computing power. It starts by the infrastructure. And when we say, and when we talk about embedded AI in a submarine or an aircraft carrier, obviously we can depend of a cloud hosted somewhere in the world. It must be on-premise on the ship. And we have to master the architecture. And the second topics behind that is this infrastructure will store all the data produced on the ships. And it is very sensitive data, so we have to master all this infrastructure. The second thing is about the models and the open source. We rely on open source models because we can audit the code, because we can remove the potential vulnerabilities, master the bias, and that's really important for us. As I said before, we have to deliver the best decision. And well, the third topic around the technology pillar is mastering the overall engineering process. In fact, the AI component is not standalone. It is integrated in overall digital system, navigation system, a cyber system, and so on. And another thing is that when you deliver a component, well, necessarily on the battlefield, it will face data that has never been shown during the learning process. So we have to adapt the AI component on the battlefield, and I trust in a continuous training loop. We have to co-design with the Navy, probably. Second pillar is more on organization and partnership. I'm convinced that artificial intelligence is empowered by human intelligence first. So we decided to set up a center of excellence within Naval Group with talents. We train all along the career, and we retain all along the career, because it's very important to master technology and the trade the defense brings. And the second topic is partnership. We have to be surrounded by the best ecosystem, academic, startup, other big brands, major brands of the defense. We have to be surrounded by all this ecosystem. Therefore, that's two pillars we have in our strategy that aims to really deliver the best AI, the French Navy sailor and commanding officers really deserve on the battlefield.
Thank you. And so Su Young at BNP Paribas, what is the winning strategy for resilient AI?
So our group CISO is not here, so I'm not probably the best person to talk about it. But it's true that one of the major questions that every company is asking itself is, how do you organize yourself to remain resilient in a area where things move really fast? In other words, the ability to continue to operate regardless of external disruptions. It's what we call operational autonomy. And it's especially difficult when the tech's moving really, really fast, like they do nowadays. It's one of the reasons that we have a very strong partnership with one of the tech companies and have set up a on-premise cloud system where we have decided to build our internal large language model serving platform. So we have a platform that we call LLM as a service that provides to all the IT applications that want to leverage Gen AI capabilities to access the models, either through the partnership with Mistral or with open source models through just this API call. So that's the decision, that's the direction that we've taken, and it has been really helpful. One of the major applications is the LLM at our corporate investment banking that serve roughly 50,000 employees, and especially on the trade and sales team, helping them with the things you probably have all guessed with summarization, translation, drafting texts, or summarizing, or et cetera, et cetera. So that's very important for us. And why open source model? Because, well, it offers three things. First, it's cost effective, so it helps with the operational efficiency, and it benefits from the collective intelligence that the community behind the open source models, where libraries really help to contribute to make sure that we stay at the state of the art. I've said a lot of things, but I guess that I can really summarize it in 2 points and 4 things. Both of my answers. The first is that I've mentioned really to invest in secure and robust infrastructure. And second is have the proper governance framework and partnership to make sure that you have control over the data and the models that you handle.
Thank you. So, listening to you, you don't build resilient AI by yourself. It takes an ecosystem. You were talking about partnerships with public and with private entities. So my next question is for you, Amiral, and for you, Yann. What should a state like France or the European Union do for sovereign AI? What are their responsibilities?
It's both a difficult and a very important question to answer. First, what is the state of mind of people, not in this room, but outside the room? We must admit that for years and years, our governments all over Europe, not only in France or in EU, have shown a kind of lack of interest for new technologies. Things have been lately improving, that's good, but still we are late, as I said, and we are much more reactive when I would like all of us to be more proactive. As you all know, there has been a diversity of state responses to cyber problems and AI techniques all over Europe. Different governments not being able, up to now, hopefully it might change, and it has to change anyway, answering in different ways which are not coordinated at all. And as all of us know, Europe is 50-something different states, So different understandings of sovereignty, whereas we are one continent and all our children are first Europeans. This is very important. And we have to deal right now, and when we look outside geopolitics, to what people call hybrid attacks, whatever. How do we deter them? Deterrence, cyber deterrence, if I may say so. It has nothing to do with nuclear deterrence. But cyber deterrence is probably the correct answer to coercion. Coercion which is used every day as well by Chinese hackers or Russian hackers, working or not on behalf of their own government. So we have to improve our cybersecurity, and in this aspect, AI techniques are of paramount importance. Without them, we would just always be one train behind. Well, we must be at least slightly ahead. We have to work on cloud norms, and I'm referring to data protection, of course. We have to work on many things, and in my view, it's even bigger than purely EU, because Europe is bigger than the EU. We mustn't forget that our British cousins are out of EU, but very good in AI techniques too, so we should cooperate. So this is my answer. We have to move quickly, we have to be proactive, and this has to be helped in the first place by the different governments in order for them to build, I would say, the landscape on which companies will be able to work.
Thank you. Yann?
So the first type of resiliency is always based on knowledge and talent. If we want to be positive about France, France has harnessed intellectual power in the Saclay Plateau, where a lot of the knowledge and the ability to drive algorithmic processing, therefore AI, that coalesced in one of the technology that Probabl is responsible for, also known as scikit-learn. Scikit-learn is an open source framework for machine learning, #1 in the world, 3.5 billion downloads. It's French. Nobody knows it's French, but every data scientist on the planet uses it. Now, that's interesting because this is precisely the type of leadership that actually cancels out dominant play. Scikit-learn is the #1 framework for machine learning, period. And it's essentially was built out of INRIA, Saclay. We're now the operator of this technology. But there is no more competition. It's done. That part, that algorithmic machine learning type of AI is distributed worldwide. It belongs to humanity by now. So there's one way to provide sovereignty to everyone, which is precisely to distribute the technology horizontally. China has made a policy out of open source in 2022. Why? Because China is a challenger to the US that has managed to somehow capitalize and create a weaponize AI. And so we find it in the latest sequence, of course, OpenAI with ChatGPT, and then we had Llama 2 from Meta, and then we had Mistral that also leveraged the open source, which gave DeepSeek. And DeepSeek is very much part of the Chinese philosophy to distribute something that benefits society horizontally, which empowers the continent. So Europe is fragmented and is lagging behind in terms of creating the champions. Therefore, we need to embrace the philosophy of open as a strategy so that we can empower the continent. This levels the playing field because, frankly, in terms of antitrust and competitive frameworks, we have not made a dent. We have not managed to basically create a wedge into that market that is dominated by a few players. It's an issue in the US as well, right? So to me, the answer is, of course, at the corporate level, this can be used as well. In fact, if we look at what's happening between big tech, they use open source as a weapon to counter big tech. But at the macro level, nations also use open to counter nations. So we need to leverage that as Europeans because, by the way, as Europeans, open is part of our DNA, right? It's part of how we went from dogma to science and enlightenment. So technology should not be completely dominated by a few players. It should be distributed, which, by the way, solves the security issue. Because once you have many stakeholders, then everyone is able to look at the security aspect of things. So there is more to gain than to lose when it comes to technology that should be empowering as opposed to creating a delta, a gap that is detrimental. Europe is losing GDP as a result of not playing as well as the US. Therefore, open source is a way to undercut the dominant play.
Yes, the trouble we have with open source is we must have people understand that they have to get rid of misconceptions with open source. First misconception, it's unsafe. Why? It does only depend on who designed it. If security and safety is in the initial design, it will be safe. Second misconception, as it's free, it has no value. No, it's not really free because you need scientists, you need labs. And this is the work of our government. So we do need open source. Of course, it may seem contradictory to sovereignty as we are fragmented. Well, I'm not very much in trouble with that because we all know that sciences first and scientists second have no borders, specifically in Europe.
Thank you very much, all of you, for this very interesting session. I think we can have a big round of applause for our speakers.